You're listening to the Drummer Daily Podcast, the only daily podcast dedicated just to drummers. Go to my website at danielhadaway.com. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my podcast. I just walked inside from taking the trash out. That's the honest, glamorous life of a professional drummer in Nashville. You still take your own trash out. No, we didn't get the butler to do it this time. We gave him the day off. Hope you can tell I'm kidding. We don't have a butler. That's a whole other episode of the podcast about what it's really like as far as the finances of being a professional drummer. But you probably don't want to hear that right now. And if you do, it's too late because I recorded this. It's not live. But I do. Speaking of, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I took the garbage out. And the reason I took the garbage out, I've been waiting until it cooled off enough here and stopped raining to take the garbage out, and it finally did. And it's actually pleasant outside right now here in Nashville, which is a rare occurrence. Speaking of Nashville, I wanted to talk today, and after I got thinking about this, I was like, oh man, I have probably 3 hours of material that relates to this topic. But so I thought I'd just kind of generally touch on it today, and then we'll get into more specifics down the road. But I actually, so what I wanted to talk about today was this. The realities of being a studio musician, if you've ever, or a studio drummer, I guess particularly, being a studio drummer is very, very different than being a live drummer or playing drums in your house or in your room by yourself or playing in a band or playing at church, anything else. Playing drums in the studio is literally a completely different thing than anything else music related, I think. It's so different and strange. It's a skill altogether separate. I'll put it like this. If playing drums is like a normal, a normal person walking, then playing studio drums is like doing like where the Olympics are going on. So like there's like the modern pentathlon, I think, where it's like an event, like it involves some running, but it also involves like swimming and shooting a gun and riding a horse or something else. I don't know. It's a bunch of weird random stuff all put together. And sure, it's kind of like, you think about track and field. Oh, it's just a bunch of people running. Well, it's not really like that. It's not, you could probably try to do all those things, but there's a very little of it that's actually running. And that's the thing about playing drums in the studio, is that very little of what you're doing in the studio is playing drums in the same way that you play drums when you sit down just to have fun practicing or anything else. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is this. There's so many other things that are happening in the studio. I had a session today, that's why I'm thinking about this, that have nothing to do with the take you're about to do or whatever. And it can be really tough. It's not easy. It's very different. So how is it different? Well, a couple of things. The first thing is 90% of the reason why you're there is because you can play consistently and you have a good attitude and you're fun to hang out with. And I'm not kidding. Just being fun to hang out with can get you a lot of gigs and not completely screwing things up. And that's really, I think, what I've hung my hat on, because I'm actually not that amazing of a drummer. But I think that I can get along with pretty much anybody, at least for a few hours, and I like to keep a positive attitude about things, and when I play, I don't typically completely crash and burn ever. I might go for something and it doesn't work, but I don't crash and burn. So the thing about playing in the studio is you might get one pass through the song at the beginning, at least the way that every studio situation I've ever been in, I've been in a lot. You might get one or two passes through the whole song where you just track and kind of play whatever you're thinking after you've heard the song. But then after that, you start getting notes from the producer. The producer will jump on the talkback mic and say, hey, play this kick pattern in the chorus. Don't play the ride. Play the hi-hats open in the second chorus, and then in the pre-chorus before the second chorus, go to a roll on the snare and then in the bridge, go to where you ride on the floor tom instead of on a cymbal. And it'll tell you all those things at one time, and then you're like, all right, got it. And then you go and you do another pass, and you have to remember all of those things. If you play a different kick pattern or a different overall pattern, between different choruses, that might not be a good thing. So you got to remember what you played. If he says, "Oh, I love what you did in that bridge," after you're done with the song, you better remember what you did in the bridge, or you have to listen back to it and you take more time. So it's just such a mentally taxing thing. And the thing about all the mental part of playing in the studio is that you can't really practice for that. You can't. It's not like playing, I better get really good at my single stroke rolls because then I'll be ready in the studio when they need me to do that. The stuff that really is the hardest part about being in the studio is stuff that you can't practice for. Maybe the only thing that really can help you to practice for the studio is playing with the click, because you obviously do that a lot in the studio. But other than that, there's really not a lot you can do to prepare for it. And it's such a mental thing, but I will say this: maintaining a good attitude. And I know for me, and this is me kind of being vulnerable here, I have the tendency to feel kind of arrogant, or like I've grown up being in like, this is going to sound really, really silly, but like I grew up, and like when I was in high school, I played drums for the show choir, and like I played drums in the band. And so those things, like they train you that the drummer is the leader of the band, or like kind of control, holds everything down. And so in marching band specifically, they say it doesn't matter if the drums are wrong. If the drums are doing this thing and you're not, then you're wrong. And so growing up with that mentality, you start thinking as a drummer, you think, I think this is the right thing for a drummer to do. And then you might know the producer, like, well, he's not a drummer. Well, who is he to tell me what feels right as a drum part? Well, he's a producer, you're the drummer. The producer is the one who's gonna shape the song, and so you have to just say, yeah, let's do that. Doesn't matter what you think is good or bad. You can offer suggestions sometimes when you think you might have them, but really at the end of the day, what that guy tells you to do, that's what you got to play. And so it can be a really tough thing for your pride or for your ego to try to not only go along with what someone else is saying if you're not sure if it's the right thing musically, but at the same time be positive about it and put everything into that the same way you put everything into whatever idea you had to start with. So I'll give you this, but that's the emotional side of things. Back to like the whole idea of like the complexities of like all the notes that someone gives you, or remembering patterns that you might need to play that have a there's layers upon layers of patterns. You might play this pattern for 4 bars and then end with drum fill A, and then the next time you play the next 4 bars of the chorus, you might end that same pattern with drum fill B. And that whole 8-bar segment with 2 different drum fills in it is one giant chorus. And so you need to remember that whole chorus is a chunk that goes into the next chorus. It's the same thing. So one tip I'll give you, if you've never worked with a sequencer, like the actual a computer sequencer, like a drum sequencer, or like a drum machine that has like the 16 beat like divisions where you can kind of sequence things out. Doing something like that can really expand your mind and help you wrap your mind around the idea of like these patterns kind of nesting inside of each other. And I think if you do a Google search for like online sequencer, there should be some that are free and actually work right inside your web browser, like online drum machine, online sequencer, something like that. So do a Google search for that and see what you find. So that's my tip for you. But as you can tell, man, I am like, I'm so pumped about all this. There's so much I could talk about studio drumming. But since we're going into the weekend, I thought I know this episode's a little longer than some of the other ones, but I thought I'd go into the weekend and give you a little extra content. So I hope that's helpful to you, or hope that's inspiring, or kind of get your wheels turning about how to maybe approach, if you'd like to be a studio drummer, or even be more dependable as a live drummer. Some of this stuff, the skills, if you can learn how to be a good studio drummer, that stuff does translate into playing drums live. It doesn't also always work the other way. Some of the attitude stuff does, but it doesn't always work the other way other than that. Hopefully that helps you out. Also, you might note that these past couple episodes are a little bit louder volume-wise on your device, however you're listening, than usual, or they have been. That was on purpose. I got some feedback from a listener. he let me know, like, hey, is there any way you can make, your podcast is so much quieter than everybody else's that I listen to, and it's fine when I have to turn the volume up to listen to your podcast, but then when it goes to the next podcast automatically and it's somebody else's, it like I jump out of my car, it's so loud. And so I did some tweaks to this to hopefully make this podcast more in line volume wise with what you're used to hearing everywhere else. But let me know what you think either way. Also, let me know this, if you can, if you're still listening, which I probably lost most of you by now, but if you're still listening, send me an email, daniel@danielhadaway.com, and let me know what you want me to talk about in this podcast. I'm making this to serve you and to hopefully give you some tips and tricks for things that you care about. And so if you don't care about what I'm talking about, let me know, because I can change. I want to help you. I'm not here to toot my own horn or do what I want. I'm here to serve you. So let me know what you want to hear about, and I'll be happy. I love hearing from you. So just let me know whatever you're thinking about that you'd like to hear about, and I'll do more of that. All right, so have a great weekend, and I look forward to talking with you again on Monday, or a couple of days from now whenever you're listening to this, or right away if you have delayed in downloading this and there's more episodes available already. All right, bye.